It's Wednesday night after a long day, and the last thing you want to do is cook dinner from scratch. But you still want a satisfying, tasty meal without the guilt? Enter your freezer's sidekick, Cauliflower. From thin and crispy cauliflower crust pizzas to all-natural white meat chicken tenders and more, Cauliflower is gluten-free always, satisfies every craving, and is ready in minutes. Cauliflower is available in freezer aisles nationwide. Visit eatcauliflower.com/where-to-buy to find a store near you.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this podcast do not necessarily represent those of the podcast, its creators, or sponsors. If you would like to discuss a missing persons case on this podcast, please be sure to visit missingpersonspodcast.net. This episode may contain unsettling or disturbing subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Missing Persons, a podcast dedicated to spreading the word about people who have vanished under mysterious or unexplained circumstances and the family members who are looking for answers. I'm Jess Betancourt.
And I'm Mike Morford. Together we created this podcast to help give a voice to people who continue to look for their missing loved ones. In some cases, even after decades have gone by. In each episode, you'll hear from Jess giving listeners the backstory and the basic facts of the disappearance.
Then Mike will speak with someone who's intimately connected to the missing person, and his guest will share their story with us.
Please stay tuned at the conclusion of this episode to hear about our Patreon program and our commitment to help find people who have gone missing. We'll also share with you where you can find more information and how you can join our team and help our efforts. You'll get recommendations for other podcasts we think you'll enjoy, and more.
So sit back and enjoy this episode, and who knows, maybe you can help us find someone who's missing. Episode 8, Mary Jane Croft Van Gilder. Mary Jane Croft was born on November 19, 1911, in Montana, West Virginia. She was the fourth child of 8, born to John and Anna Croft, who lived in the small town of Montana in the northern part of the state near the Pennsylvania border. Not much is known about Mary Jane's early life. But as was typical at the time, Mary Jane married young. On January 29, 1929, she married James Wesley Van Gilder when she was just 17 years old. The couple went on to have several children, including a set of twins that tragically was stillborn. 2 years after the birth of the couple's youngest child, Cheryl Gay Van Gilder, Mary Jane abruptly left the Van Gilder family farm in Montana and moved into the town of Fairmont. According to the Charlie Project, Mary Jane alleged that her husband was abusive, and relatives report that James was an alcoholic. So in 1943, Mary Jane rented an apartment above the old Fairmont Theater, leaving her husband and 5 children behind. Mary Jane's oldest daughter, Anna Mae Van Gilder Rager, who is our guest today, told a local newspaper in February of this year that she was just a little kid when her mom left, so she isn't sure what exactly happened in her parents' marriage or what kind of work her mom was doing in Fairmont. James supported the family Mary Jane left behind thanks to his job at President Roosevelt's Works Progress Administration. It's not clear exactly how long Mary Jane lived in Fairmont, but most reports agree that in late 1943 or early 1944, she moved to Plymouth, Ohio. Initially, she lived at a rooming house and at a house on Truck Street, but eventually settled 7 miles away in a house on Woodland Avenue in Willard. On March 7, 1944, Mary Jane started working at the Army Air Force Supply Depot in Shelby, driving a forklift. This was during World War II, and Mary Jane began purchasing war bonds. These were debt securities issued by the U.S. government to finance its wartime operations. The public bought the bonds at a significant discount off their face value and then redeemed them at maturity for the full face value. Essentially, the bonds functioned as a mechanism whereby the government borrowed money from the public, who purchased the bonds as much out of patriotism as economic interest. Anyway, Mary Jane purchased war bonds at the People's Bank and sent them home to her 14-year-old daughter Anna to share with her siblings. Mary Jane wrote a lot of letters to her children and also on occasion sent items of clothing home to her family in West Virginia. But then, in 1945, Mary Jane wrote and asked for the war bonds to be returned to her, Anna later discovered that her mother then cashed in the bonds at different branches of the People's National Bank in Plymouth, Ohio, at various dates throughout that year, 1945. Then Anna received one last $25 war bond from her mother, but after that, the family had no communication with Mary Jane. Earlier that year, on February 12, 1945, Mary Jane initiated proceedings in Ohio to obtain a divorce from her husband James. In November that same year, James countersued for divorce in West Virginia. Mary Jane was not present for this filing. James was granted the divorce and custody of the 5 children. In what would be the last written piece of evidence regarding Mary Jane Croft Van Gilder, on April 4, 1946, Mary Jane's divorce petition was dismissed at her cost and request. The associated expenses were deducted from an amount that Mary Jane had left on deposit with the court. Mary Jane's brother Lester Croft began searching for his sister when he came home after serving in the Navy in World War II. Lester beseeched the Marion County Sheriff James Kane to find his sister. Sheriff Kane contacted the police chief in Plymouth, Ohio, the last known address of Mary Jane Croft Van Gilder. This was via a letter dated December 27, 1949. It described Mary Jane as being 37 years old, 5 feet 5 inches tall, and about 165 pounds with dark hair. In turn, the Plymouth police made contact with Mary Jane's last known employment, the Army Air Force Depot in Shelby. It wasn't until May 20, 1952 that Anna and the family received a response. A letter from the U.S. Air Force First Lieutenant Edwin Selzer of the Army Air Force Depot read, Mrs. Van Gilder left our employ on 8 March 1945 due to added household duties. Her address at the time of her resignation was 2 Trucks Street, Plymouth, Ohio. Prior to her residence at the above address, she resided at 311 Woodland Avenue, Willard, Ohio. The family could not imagine what these added household duties could be, and the trail of Mary Jane Croft Van Gilder seemed to go cold. The last reported sighting of her, according to the Ohio State Highway Patrol records, was by a former associate who reported seeing her in Willard, Ohio, shortly after March 1945. Anna refused to give up looking for her mother. Starting in the late 1940s and over the next 10-plus years, she wrote a series of letters to the director of the FBI himself, the esteemed J. Edgar Hoover. Hoover wrote back to Anna personally, suggesting that she get in touch with one of your local law enforcement agencies. The FBI did not have jurisdiction to investigate the case of the missing woman, although the FBI did supply the Van Gilder family with the last known address of Mary Jane in Willard, Ohio. Anna also contacted the Social Security Administration, the U.S. Treasury, the Ohio State Highway Patrol, and other authorities. But her quest came to nothing until she finally got a break in 2004. At that time, the Plymouth Journal, a newspaper in Ohio, published a story about the family's decades-long quest to find Mary Jane, and a reader contacted the family with some information. William H. King of Willard, Ohio, read the Plymouth Journal's article and emailed Anna's niece, who had since joined the search for her grandmother. According to William King's letter, his father and 2 brothers had worked at the Army Air Force Depot in the time period 1943 to 1945. They knew Mary Jane. In fact, King said, Mary Jane was good friends with his parents. I was just 13 at the time, but I remember your grandmother very well. She had long dark hair to her shoulders and was a very cheerful person, King wrote. He remembered that Mary Jane did not have a driver's license, and she had often gotten rides to and from work with his relatives who worked at the depot. Unfortunately, King did not have any information about what had happened to Mary Jane after 1945. Her mother died in 1963, and Mary Jane did not attend the funeral. The Van Gilder family's search stalled until 2018. At that point, Mary Jane's granddaughter, Mindy Wilson, called the police chief in Shelby, Ohio, asking about her grandmother. The chief assigned the case to Officer Adam Turner, who opened a missing persons investigation into Mary Jane's case. He entered Mary Jane's personal information into the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, or NamUs, as well as the Charlie Project and the Doe Network. Officer Turner has spent countless hours trying to track down any information regarding Mary Jane. He told the Register-Herald newspaper, I work on this case every day. I could spend 40 hours a week on this case. I've written tons and tons of letters to coroner's offices, police departments, newspapers, and libraries asking for feedback and information. One of the tasks Officer Turner has taken on in the course of the investigation into Mary Jane's case is trying to determine whether any known Jane Does could be Mary Jane. In August of 2019, Officer Turner arranged for the exhumation of a Jane Doe buried in Preble County, who he felt, based on her physical characteristics, fit the description of Mary Jane. Test results on the exhumed Jane Doe are still pending at this time. James Van Gilder died in 1985, and the family home burned to the ground in the 1980s, destroying what was left of Mary Jane's things. Investigators have not even been able to determine whether she had a Social Security number. She remains a missing person. When she disappeared at age 33, Mary Jane Croft Van Gilder was a Caucasian female, about 5 foot 5 inches tall, and weighed about 160 pounds. She had wavy brown hair and brown eyes. She had freckles across the bridge of her nose, and she possibly had scars on her back from when she was struck by an airplane propeller while working at the depot. If you have any information regarding the whereabouts of Mary Jane Croft Van Gilder, please call Officer Adam Turner of the Shelby, Ohio Police Department at 419-347-2242. Mike Morford sat down to talk with Anna Rager, Mary Jane's daughter, for missing persons. He also spoke with Officer Turner about the case. Those conversations are coming up after a word from our sponsors.
It's Wednesday night after a long day, and the last thing you want to do is cook dinner from scratch. But you still want a satisfying, tasty meal without the guilt? Enter your freezer's sidekick, Cauliflower. From thin and crispy cauliflower crust pizzas to all-natural white meat chicken tenders and crowd-pleasing snacks, Cauliflower satisfies every craving. Cauliflower's products are your favorite comfort foods, but made better for you and gluten-free always. The best part? You don't have to sacrifice taste or time, so you can honor your cravings without compromising. Craving pizza? You can enjoy Cauliflower's delicious margarita pizza for only 370 calories for half the pizza. Looking for easy snacks that kids and adults alike will love? Cauliflower's baked, never-fried pizza snacks are nostalgia reimagined and ready in 5 minutes. Cauliflower's products are available in freezer aisles nationwide. Visit eatcauliflower.com/where-to-buy to find a store near you.
Let's be honest. Most of us have a love-hate relationship with wired bras. We love the lift, but hate the digging. We love the support, but hate feeling trapped. Well, Knix just changed everything with FreeFlex, a wired bra actually designed to work with your body, not against it. FreeFlex features a revolutionary flexible wire that moves when you move, bends when you bend, and keeps everything exactly where you want it. No poking, no stabbing, no constant readjusting, just freedom to move. It also has a demi-cup shape for a natural lift with a lower neckline that flatters in everything from V-necks to dresses. And because it's from Knix, it's available in sizes for every body. Experience the first wired bra you'll actually want to wear all day. Visit Knix.com for 15% off your order with FreeFlex15. That's KNIX.com, code FreeFlex15 for 15% off. Knix.com.
Hi, Anna, and thank you for joining me to discuss your mother, Mary Jane's case on missing persons. Your mother has been missing for 75 years.
She's been missing since 1945, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, that's a very long time. How old were you when she went missing?
Well, I was born in 1931, and 1944 was when she went to work in Ohio. She worked for a company down there, and she started work the 7th of March of 1944 and worked until March the 8th, 1945. At that time, she had sent me war bonds through a company from Fairfield, Ohio, and she wrote me and asked me to return those to her. In 1945, I sent them all. One came back after that. These bonds were cashed at various states in 1945. A lady thought they might have saw her in the along the streets in Ohio after she had quit working. We have not been able to find anything about where she went from then. I have searched. I sent letters until 1949, and they were returned. In 1949, my uncle came out of the Marine Navy, I believe, and he went to the sheriff of Marion County, which is in West Virginia. And Mr. Kane of Marion County started a search, and he sent letters to me and my dad. And at that time, in 1949, I started searching. I have searched in Ohio. I have been to J. Edgar Hoover. I have been everywhere that I can think of and anybody else can think of. Now then, Adam has got it. Well, he started that about a year ago or something like that, and he's done a lot. I have a niece that's named Mindy and one that's named Misty, and they have been with me.
Let me ask you a question about when your mom disappeared. Were the two of you close when she disappeared?
I wrote to my mother from the time she disappeared from the time she went to work until she disappeared. I had lots of letters from her. At one time she said clothing. I don't remember her ever sending any money. I know she sent clothing when I was still in school. And that would have been probably when I was maybe in the 8th grade. I don't remember what year it was.
Really missing her, I would think, while she was gone, and then when she disappeared, you were without her all that time.
I wasn't very old when she disappeared. I wrote to some girl, a friend of hers, while she was still writing to me. I left all my stuff in my press at my home when I married, and when I went back to look for it, it was all gone. And I did not remember a lot of stuff at that time, and still don't. But when I was probably 14, 15 years old when she went, she worked in Fairmont for a while, and I visited her one time there maybe for a weekend, and from then, she just disappeared from then. The next time I heard from her was when she was working in Ohio.
When you got a little bit older, you mentioned that you started looking for her and going out and trying to find out where she went, what happened to her. What kind of help did you get from police? Did they have any kind of clues to work with back then?
I had no help from no one except that one letter that stated that a person had saw her in the streets, I believe. I can't remember. I have to go back and look at the letter, and that was the only thing. I had no help from anyone until Adam started working on it. I had searched through the computer. I had wrote lots of letters when I didn't have a computer. I worked with Ancestry. I've searched a lot of Mary Jane Crofts and Mary Van Gilders and found nothing. Adam has done the same thing, and he's found nothing either that I know of. I know Misty had worked with me, and she, between the two of us, we found nothing.
So a lot of dead ends or places where you couldn't find any more information about what happened.
Well, I have looked, Ohio has 88 counties that have everything in them. Now, in 1945, she filed for divorce out of Huron County, Huron, Huron County, Ohio. At that divorce, at that time, my dad, I guess when he got the notice, he went ahead and filed for the divorce. We heard nothing. I didn't even know about this until my dad and my stepdad had died, and my half-sister sent this paper to me where she had filed for the divorce, and that was, that she had filed in 45, and somebody said in 46 she had dropped it, but I think it just automatically dropped when my dad got his. I know that my dad got married, I believe, in 46. I don't remember exactly. I have to look that up.
You mentioned this went on not knowing what happened to your mom for the majority of your life, and here you are almost 3/4 of a century later. You still don't have the answers, but you mentioned that Adam has taken on the case and has tried to help you with using new techniques, new technology and stuff. How great for you to have him looking into it all these years later.
I believe that my niece Mindy got this started. She, I guess we're all concerned. We would all like to know what happened to her. I know Adam has done all kinds of stuff, and he has a lot more knowledge than I do. And though I have searched through Ancestry.com for a lot of years and have found nothing. I've found a lot of Mary Crofts, but I cannot find a Social Security number that would help me do this.
Have you tried, or has anyone in your family tried submitting their DNA into Ancestry.com?
I have a DNA. Misty has one, and Mindy has one, and Mary, my sister's daughter, has one. So I've put mine in, and but I have a DNA in there, and I've had it for 2 or 3 years, but I've found nothing. I've found people that I'm related to, but not to my mother.
Yeah, and that's the key, is hoping that somewhere along the line you'd find a link to your mom there, and not seeing that. It sounds like that could be cause for concern that possibly something, bad happened to her back then. You don't think that she would have ever gone off and just started a new life on her own? Do you think that something
That's something I had thought about. I know there was a name of somebody that was in those letters, but like I said, the letters disappeared, and I cannot remember the name. Like I said, I was, 14, 15? I was married when I was 16. So at that time, I sort of didn't lose interest, but I had thought she had remarried, and we have searched, my sister and I, for maybe she had a child. But where we searched, we did not find anything. So, and I have not been able to find where she had gotten married again or anything like that. We know she would have gotten a divorce when my dad got his.
But all those roads have led nowhere in tracking down anything about her.
Well, I don't know why she would have not kept in touch with us. I know her mother died in 1963, I believe. But nobody saw her then. She was listed as a family member, her and my Aunt Rose and my Uncle Johnny. My Uncle John had disappeared too, but he was found. Due to that we had a Social Security number, we found him after he had passed away. We have not been able to find my Aunt Rose or my mother.
I know it's been a very long journey, over 75 years. That's a very long time to be looking for a loved one, especially someone, your mother, who I'm sure you would have loved to have had a relationship growing up with and becoming an adult. How difficult has it been not having her in your life all these years?
Well, after a while, you get sort of used to it, but you still keep searching. Like I said, I'll lay it down for a little while, then I go back. In fact, I'm back now looking through a lot of Mary Crofts that I had been through probably 5-6 years ago. And I know Adam has a list of them, but this is ones I have listed that had gotten a Social Security number in Ohio. So the ones I'm going to search now is going to be those. Well, I still have hopes. I know that the girls have, Misty and Mindy, that's Barbara's children, have been, I know Misty has looked longer than Mindy has. And I know I have looked longer than any of them. I'm the oldest of the children she had, and she had 5.
Do you think that she got married and started a new life and just a new identity, or do you think that maybe after she got remarried, something happened to her?
Well, that has always been my thought until recently I've started thinking, well, what happened to her, you know? Like I said, if I could have found those letters, it would have helped me. But I couldn't find them. They were gone. My dad had gotten remarried, and somebody had evidently cleaned the area out I had to keep my stuff in. So they were gone. And I couldn't find the girl's name or address that I had wrote to. It had been too long. Even 4 or 5 years was too long. When I started looking for her, after my uncle came out of the Navy in 1949 of November, that was a long time. And now that it's been a lot of years, and it's still hard, but I'm still thinking that there'll be a Social Security number somewhere that I will find and find out what happened to her. Maybe I have other relatives. I don't know. If they are, there is none of them cropped up in DNA, because I have that record of that where it comes from the ancestor.
How important is it to you after this much time's gone by to how great would it be to find out, just have an answer of what happened to her?
Well, it would be a weight off of my mind. I'm now 89 years old, so it would be a weight off of my mind, and I'm sure that Misty and Mindy, it would be a blessing to them. It's very important to me to find out. I have looked all these years, and that's a lot of years, a lot of time spent. But I do not think it's been a waste of time. I just think it's something I have not been able to find.
And I think your situation proves that no matter how long somebody's missing, you keep searching for them because you want to know what happened to them, even if it's 75 years.
Well, since 1945 was the last time I heard from her. And when I started looking for her, I had one address and one war bond. That's what I had. And I think I'm a long ways, and I think Adam has came a long ways. But that's what I had to start with, was one address and one war bond.
Well, you've definitely got a good team by your side, and I wish you luck digging and looking for clues, and hopefully you have some kind of resolution and find out what happened to your mom.
Well, I hope so, too.
My name's Adam Turner. I'm a police officer with the city of Shelby in Richland County, Ohio, and I am the lead investigator on the 1945 disappearance of Mary Jane Croft Van Gilder.
Now, Mary Jane went missing in 1945.
Correct.
So that's obviously quite a long time ago. Can you tell me how and when her case came to land in your lap?
Well, in April of 2018, the police department was contacted by Mary Jane's granddaughter, who kind of just gave us a brief overview, said her grandmother was missing from the Shelby area. She had worked in Shelby in 1945, and basically she disappeared in February of that year and has not been seen or heard from since. That was the first time that we, as a police agency, had heard of this case. If it was ever reported to us in 45 or in the years following, we have no record of it. Mary Jane at the time was working in a World War II ammunitions depot. They made munitions for the war and airplane parts, etc. And she worked there, but she worked in the city of Shelby, but she lived in the village of Plymouth, which is in Huron County. So while speaking with Mary Jane's granddaughter, my chief, Lance Combs, found out that they had contacted the Plymouth Police Department back around 2004 and basically had told them the same thing. And at the time, Sergeant Tom Heinz, he is now the chief of police up there, but he was a sergeant at the time, said that he would do a little research on his end, and he tried to track her down through some systems available to law enforcement only, but he really wasn't able to find too much. They ran an article in the Plymouth paper in 2004, basically asking anyone in the public if they knew her or knew of her whereabouts, and they received one letter to them directly, and it was from a gentleman who said that he knew Mary Jane. Mary Jane actually worked with his father at the Wilkins Army Air Force Depot in Shelby, and that she didn't have a car. So they also lived in Plymouth, and his dad would drive her to work every day. So he remembered her. He didn't remember a whole lot about her. He said, he remembered that she had dark hair and brown eyes. He said that she was very nice, and his dad and his older brother knew her. They have since obviously passed, and then once the war started to end, there later that year, they stopped hearing from her. So that's pretty much about all he had, and that's the only person that responded to that 2004 newspaper article. So after our chief did a little bit of precursory investigation, he handed it to me in October of 2018.
So is there any indication in your work that you've done so far that anyone else reported her missing back in the mid-1940s when she was last seen?
She was the first official report, I guess you could say, came. It wasn't until 1949. Mary Jane's eldest daughter, Anna Mae Rager, had basically been communicating with her mother. Anna lived in Fairmont, Fairmont, West Virginia, where Mary Jane was originally from, and she was communicating with her mother via written letters. Those letters suddenly stopped right around the time that Mary Jane quit her job, and Anna Mae thought at the time that her mother maybe had moved on to a new job in another state at another location. So she didn't really think too much of it, because there was lengthy periods of time where Anna Mae had not heard from her mother. So fast forward a couple years until 1949, and one of Mary Jane's brothers had come back from fighting in World War II, and came back to Fairmont and started asking questions about the whereabouts of his sister. So once he came back and they started realizing that nobody's heard from Mary Jane, Anna Mae started writing letters to local law enforcement there in Fairmont. So the Van Gilder house, the original Van Gilder house, was outside of Fairmont in Marion County, West Virginia. So Anna Mae had written to the sheriff of Marion County, West Virginia, and asked for assistance. That sheriff, in turn, wrote a letter to the Plymouth chief of police at the time. If he got a response, we unfortunately do not have any record of that. And he had also wrote letters to the Army Air Force Depot asking about her whereabouts, and to the Baltimore Police Department asking for her whereabouts, because it was rumored that she might have went to the Maryland to Baltimore after she had resigned from her position. So Anna Mae kind of started this whole investigation herself, and she continued to follow up with it throughout the years. She corresponded multiple times with the FBI, and she had some of the letters that she had written to the FBI and some of the letters that they had sent back. Basically, the contents of those letters said that the FBI was not going to get involved in a local law enforcement matter, but that they would maintain a file on Mary Jane and have her listed as missing.
So I assume that this is the oldest missing persons case that you've worked on. Is that correct?
Yes, it's probably one of the oldest ones in the country.
Are missing person cases typically not anywhere as close to this age?
No. Most missing person cases are actually juveniles who run away from home, are maybe missing for, sometimes it's hours, sometimes days, weeks, months, but it usually they are resolved relatively quickly. Now, there are missing adults, and their missing adults are more prevalent than you think. But those, most cases turn out where the missing person has been found. Maybe they just kind of cut off ties with their family, or didn't answer their phone for a while, or just didn't want to talk to anybody, and they're usually resolved that way. But unfortunately, there are cases like this one where someone just basically drops off the face of the earth. And it does happen, and it's not commonplace, but it's there, and it does exist.
It's Wednesday night after a long day, and the last thing you want to do is cook dinner from scratch. But you still want a satisfying, tasty meal without the guilt? Enter your freezer's sidekick, Cauliflower. From thin and crispy cauliflower crust pizzas to all-natural white meat chicken tenders and crowd-pleasing snacks, Cauliflower satisfies every craving. Cauliflower's products are your favorite comfort foods, but made better for you and gluten-free always. The best part? You don't have to sacrifice taste or time, so you can honor your cravings without compromising. Craving pizza? You can enjoy Cauliflower's delicious margarita pizza for only 370 calories for half the pizza. Looking for easy snacks that kids and adults alike will love? Cauliflower's baked, never-fried pizza snacks are nostalgia reimagined and ready in 5 minutes. Cauliflower's products are available in freezer aisles nationwide. Visit eatcauliflower.com/where-to-buy to find a store near you.
Let's be honest. Most of us have a love-hate relationship with wired bras. We love the lift, but hate the digging. We love the support, but hate feeling trapped. Well, Knix just changed everything with FreeFlex, a wired bra actually designed to work with your body, not against it. FreeFlex features a revolutionary flexible wire that moves when you move, bends when you bend, and keeps everything exactly where you want it. No poking, no stabbing, no constant readjusting, just freedom to move. It also has a demi-cup shape for a natural lift with a lower neckline that flatters in everything from V-necks to dresses. And because it's from Knix, it's available in sizes for every body. Experience the first wired bra you'll actually want to wear all day. Visit Knix.com for 15% off your order with FreeFlex15. That's KNIX.com, code FreeFlex15 for 15% off. Knix.com.
In your investigation so far, is there anything to suggest that there might be foul play involved?
That's something that I definitely consider. You have to look at every possible angle for a case like this. I mean, I have very little leads, if any. So the leads that I generate to do my research are leads that I have to basically create on my own. So as far as foul play, it's hard to tell because I don't know exactly what her personal life was like when she was living up here in Ohio. We have no record of a boyfriend or somebody at work or somebody she was seeing or a friend. I mean, there's no documentation on that, and she never spoke of that in her letters to Anna Mae. I mean, obviously she left the Van Gilder home there in Fairmont. They had Mary Jane and her husband were having some marital issues, and she had actually left in 44 and moved into the city of Fairmont, 43, 44, and worked in the city of Fairmont for a couple months, maybe to a year, and then moved up here to Ohio. So she had left after she was up here in Ohio, she did file for divorce from her husband, James. And basically the divorce decree, which I do have, cites neglect and abuse on his part. But as another angle I have to consider, besides the foul play, is that if Mary Jane did leave on her own accord, maybe she met foul play a little farther down the road. Maybe she lived for a period of years somewhere else, and then met foul play, or she lived somewhere else and died of natural causes, or she had an accident. I have to consider the fact that maybe she met with foul play in or around 45, or that she lived for a while and then met with foul play, or she didn't meet with foul play at all, that she, kind of went off the grid on purpose and maybe started a life somewhere else. So I definitely consider all angles, and foul play has not been ruled out.
So you've really got your job cut out for you, trying to connect dots and find little puzzle pieces to figure out what happened.
Yeah, I mean, if you go into, and this is for any investigation, if you go into an investigation and you say you have a preconceived notion or a mindset that this is what happened, and you exclude other possibilities, then you find evidence to support your theory. So if I only believe that Mary Jane ran away, or just left on her own accord, and I never considered the possibility that she met with foul play, I'm going to find evidence to support that. But if I just say, hey, she was murdered, there's no possible way that she would stop communicating with her kids, then I'm only looking at part of the puzzle. I have to put the whole puzzle together and let the evidence kind of lead me down the path of what actually happened.
Are missing persons cases, are they like homicide cases that they stay open until they're solved? How does that work?
Well, I mean, technically they should. That's going to vary based on jurisdiction. Some jurisdictions will close out a case. They will work it until that there's no more leads, there's no possible, in their minds, no possible resolution, and they'll close it out. Some will keep it open and then close it out based on age. They just say, based on the age, this person's obviously deceased, and basically we're not going to work it because of that. Other departments will just keep it open and work the case as a tip comes in or as time allows.
And you mentioned having to reach out to the public to ask for help and stuff like this. If there's anyone listening out there that somehow knows something or knew her, or maybe had family that knew her in that area, what kind of things are you asking for? What kind of things can people reach out to you to try and help you with this? Well,
for more detailed information on the case, if your listeners would just search Mary Jane Croft Van Gilder, they are going to see several local articles that have been written about my case. If you can't find everything, type Mary Jane Croft Van Gilder, Shelby, Ohio, or Mary Jane Croft Van Gilder, and then put my name, Adam Turner, in there. And then people will be able to see, a picture of me and pictures of Mary Jane and kind of what work I have done so far. As far as what the public can do to help, I mean, obviously, this case, Mary Jane will be 108 by now, so she's obviously deceased, but it is important to me and to her family to know her final resting place. So what the public can do is to search or look for potential unidentified remains throughout the country that match Mary Jane's physical characteristics, or that match the timeline of when she disappeared. And I do this on a daily basis, that I search. There are websites designated for the missing and the unidentified, And I basically look. There's not any years that I exclude. I mean, like I said, it is possible that she moved to a different state and lived her life elsewhere, and then met her death, and remains an unidentified body to this day. So, I mean, cases into the 80s or even the 90s, I wouldn't rule out completely. But I know as far as like civilian sleuths and stuff like that, there are people that go around to their local cemeteries, and they will take pictures of gravestones, and they will upload them to a website called Find a Grave. And that is very helpful, because I can type in a name and it'll list, all the Mary Jane Crofts that have been uploaded to this site, or all the Mary Jane Van Gilders that have been uploaded. The problem is not every cemetery is on there, and the records are incomplete. So if someone out there enjoys doing that, I would welcome them to continue doing that kind of activity.
Definitely helps you out.
Yeah, it does, because the website Find a Grave. I actually found this. I was just kind of searching around one day, and I was searching for some Jane Does, and there's a bunch of Jane Does listed, but most of them are known and entered into the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, otherwise known as NamUs. Most of those have been entered into NamUs, but when I changed the criteria a little bit onto exactly what I searched for, if I searched for unknown first name, unknown last name, then I would get a lot of results, especially when I kind of narrowed my focus down to bodies found after 1945, because we know she was alive up until February of 1945, because that's when she filed for her divorce from her husband. So what I did is when I was searching these parameters, I had found a news article from the late 60s from Preble County, Ohio, and after reading the article, I reached out to the coroner's office in Preble County, and we exchanged files. And through the help of the coroner's office there, the coroner and the coroner's investigator, Dave Linloff, we were able to exhume a body in August of last year for the purpose of DNA testing against Mary Jane, and those results are still pending.
That's really like finding a needle in a haystack.
Yeah, it really is. There are, if your listeners do go to NamUs, it is a website that's accessible to the general public, and they can search. They can search gender, race, age, height, weight, etc. And so, obviously the more narrow your search criteria, the fewer results that you get. So if you search, let's say you search a white female with brown hair and brown eyes after 1945, you're not going to get as many results as if you leave out the brown hair and brown eyes and just put white female. Or if you there's a box on there called that says unknown, or if you check that box. So people can search through the NamUs system that way as well.
And if someone thinks that they do have information or might have found her in some way, how can they reach out to you and contact you to relay that information to you?
Several ways, but the phone number to the police department here is 419-347-2242. They can call anytime and ask for me. They can also email me, and my email is my first name, Adam, ADAM, .Turner, TURNER, at Shelby, SHELBY, PD.org. And I also have a missing persons Facebook group dedicated to Mary Jane. It's all capital letters, missing, and then it says Mary Jane Croft Van Gilder. And there are multiple members of Mary Jane's family are in the group, and I try to update the group as much as possible as far as what I'm doing or results that I've gotten, and it's a good way to kind of get information out there. So as of last week, Anna Mae had received a picture from one of her sisters that we had not seen before of Mary Jane. So this picture that Anna Mae's sister had was passed down to her from Mary Jane's sister. So it kind of passed down through the years, and it just kind of been unnoticed. So, that once I got that picture, that was the first place that I put it, was on Facebook, so people could see another picture of Mary Jane, and that her family could kind of see another picture of her, and so that picture could then be disseminated to the public in the hopes of maybe jarring a memory somewhere of somebody that maybe looked like her. I'm hopeful that somebody will call or give information that said, hey, she resembles a neighbor, or she resembles somebody that was friends with my grandmother, or something along those lines. I'm hopeful that the more public awareness of this case that I have, the more likelihood of those tips will come in.
Well, we'll definitely do our part to help put the word out there, and hopefully someone comes forward if they have information to make your job a little bit easier if they can. But yeah, in the meantime, I can't thank you enough for coming on to discuss your work in this old and fascinating case, and I hope you get some luck along the way.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate you taking the time to present this case.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Missing Persons. If you can provide any information to help solve the case we discussed in this episode, we hope that you'll contact the appropriate authorities.
We hope that you'll tell your friends about Missing Persons and invite them to listen to the show. Word of mouth will really help us grow. And if you'd like to help us reach new listeners, please be sure to rate and review Missing Persons on the platform you're listening to us now on.
We'd like to tell you a little bit about our Patreon program. If you visit patreon.com/missingpodcast, you can sign up to help this podcast through ongoing monthly support. As a thank you, we'll give you an on-air shout-out, a thank you card and sticker, plus you'll get ad-free early access to every new episode of Missing Persons, as well as any bonus content.
In this episode, we'd like to thank Michelle Kaz, and thanks to all of our patrons for their support. Your Patreon support also goes directly towards helping the missing, because every dollar that we earn through Patreon will be split with two worthwhile causes that benefit the efforts to bring missing people home: CharlieProject.org and Private Investigations for the Missing. Your Patreon support will really go a long way towards helping. We hope you'll consider supporting the show. Just a reminder, new episodes of Missing Persons drop every other Saturday. If you want to find us on social media, you can search Facebook for Missing Persons Podcast. We're also on Twitter with the handle @missing_pod. And of course, you can always find us on our website, missingpersonspodcast.net. On behalf of Jess Betancourt, this is Mike Morford saying thanks, and we'll see you next time on Missing Persons.
Missing Persons is produced under the name AbJack Entertainment by Mike Morford and Jessica Betancourt. It's hosted by Mike Morford and Jessica Betancourt, with writing and research by Jessica Betancourt and editing by Mike Morford. Be sure to listen every other Saturday for an all-new episode of Missing Persons.
Marketing is hard. But I'll tell you a little secret. It doesn't have to be. Let me point something out. You're listening to a podcast right now, and it's great. You love the host. You seek it out and download it. You listen to it while driving, working out, cooking, even going to the bathroom. Podcasts are a pretty close companion. And this is a podcast ad. Did I get your attention? You can reach great listeners like yourself with podcast advertising from Libsyn Ads. Choose from hundreds of top podcasts offering host endorsements, or run a pre-produced ad like this one across thousands of shows to reach your target audience in their favorite podcasts with Libsyn Ads. Go to libsynads.com, that's LIBSYN, ads.com today.